Let's continue to look at the Ashtavakra Gita, and as I've been advising from the beginning, don't look at this set of sessions as something that you have to just listen to and hear beautiful words. See, it is all of that, but look at each of these as spiritual pointers, as spiritual contemplations, almost as spiritual exercises. As you look at each verse, it is pointing you to some condition which might wrongly have been picked up, something that we are believing about ourselves, which is not true in reality. So these are pointers to your awakening, and each of the verses is filled with so much power, spiritual significance, that the contemplation of it, the looking at it with your direct insight, not just adding to your basket of concepts, but looking at it in your own present experience, can lead to that which we are all longing for, that which you are looking for. Okay, so look at chapter 9, which is detachment. Ashtavakra is speaking now. Ashtavakra said, opposing forces, duties done and left undone. Opposing forces, duties done and left undone. When does it end? And for whom? Considering this, be ever desireless. Let go of all things, and to the world turn an indifferent eye. Considering this, be ever desireless. Let go of all things, and to the world turn an indifferent eye. Rare and blessed is one whose desire to live, to enjoy, and to know has been extinguished by observing the ways of men. Rare and blessed is one whose desire to live, to enjoy, and to know has been extinguished by observing the ways of men. We've discussed this. Don't let any of the terms create any misunderstanding. We've explored in detail what the sage is really pointing to. Seeing all things as threefold suffering, the sage becomes still. Seeing all things as threefold suffering, the sage becomes still. Insubstantial, transient, contemptible, the world is only fit for rejection. Insubstantial, transient, contemptible, the world is fit only for rejection. Was there an age or time men existed without opposites? Was there an age or time men existed without opposites? Leave the opposites behind. Be content with what comes. Perfection. Okay. So I was waiting to get to this paragraph so I could explain what is happening. See why? Because he explains now that the chapter is called detachment. So what do I say? That sometimes the sage has to give a whack from this side and sometimes he has to give a whack from that side. So if he feels like there is something like attachment, then he'll say, what is this world? It's all rubbish. Leave it behind. Don't look at it. It's full of this meat buckets and nothing but death and decay. These kind of things. Because to take us out of that attachment position of me and mine. You see? And in the end he says, leave all opposites behind, which includes attachment and detachment. You see? Sometimes the sage has to loosen the position so that we come to neutrality. You see, so if we are very attached, he will say very strong things like, Leave all of this. Why are you so attached to this meat bucket? You see, why are you so like that? But it can sound like there's an aversion towards something. You see, but it is actually just loosening that attachment and then saying, okay, leave even that. Leave the realm of opposites. So that's why the previous four or five, 3 or 4 verses, they sound like very harsh. See, things like insubstantial, transient, contemptible. The world is fit only for rejection, like that. You see, because we can be holding on to something here with for dear life as if it is giving something substantial to us. Sage is saying, just leave it. You see, like earlier he said, shun it like poison or something like that. You see? So it brings us to this, loosens our position, loosens our attachment to things, and then says, be empty of even an aversion. So the point of the pointings is not to create this opposite value, not that we go from attachment to detachment, not even that we go from doership to non-doership. You see, we leave all these opposites behind and come to this openness, to this neutrality. Was there an age or time men existed without opposites? What does this mean? The person entity, the person identity is dependent on this play of opposites. Without it, can there be this identity? You see, every concept contains some judgment, contains a picking up of an idea, a position, a reference point, as I keep saying. You see? Now he says, was there an age or time men existed without opposites? What is implied is that this identity relies on these positions, which are on opposite ends of the spectrum. Leave the opposites behind. Be content with what comes. Perfection. Perfection. Not that perfection which is also in the opposites of perfection and imperfection. Perfection or defective, not like that. This perfection of openness, neutrality. Just what is right now. So the sage is very nicely shaken us out of our attachments. And then as we are starting to get an aversion, you see, or the idea that I must be opposed to the world or in opposition to something, then he says, no, leave all the opposites behind and remain empty of this opposites. The greatest seers, saints and yogis agree on very little. This is very good. The greatest seers, saints and yogis agree on very little. You see? What is he saying? Seeing this, who could not be indifferent to knowledge and become still? You see? What is he saying there? Don't be attached even to your spiritual concepts. As Guruji says, don't make tattoos out of my words. As Bhagwan said, these are just thorns that we are using to remove other thorns. At the end, even these are thrown away. And what is the clue to discover this? That even the greatest sages, they don't agree. They don't agree on the path, on what freedom is, how to get there, especially the experience of the present, the recognition of the self is what the sages seem to agree upon. See, so the very little would be that. But how to get there? What is the path to follow? Are there steps or no steps? Is there practice or no practice? Is effort needed or not needed? Is devotion a part of this self-recognition or not? Many, many, many disagreements can happen. Even amongst those who have recognized the self. So don't allow these confusions, these contradictions to confuse you. That's why I've given all of you a clue that no pointing actually is the ultimate truth. No pointing is the ultimate truth. That's why it is a pointing. It can only point to the self, to the truth. But it cannot itself contain no term, no path, nothing actually. Because what are you being pointed to? that which you already are. Now, suppose you're on a road, you feel you're lost. You ask someone, "Sir, can you point me the way to myself?" Very easy. Some will say, "Go straight, take a left, take another left, take another left, walk for a bit, you'll get to the self." Some will say, "You're already yourself." Some will give all different kind of direction. But what are we all looking for? The self. The self itself is a big clue, you see. We're not searching for something outside of ourselves. It's just the self. So the directions could be different. But you stay with this discovery. What does the sage say? Seeing this, who could not be indifferent to knowledge? So he's talking about detachment. See, the whole chapter is called detachment. And he knows that for spiritual seekers, spiritual knowledge itself can become a big attachment. I am attached to my concepts because I must be right. I have invested so much time and energy on something. I must have come to a valid conclusion. The sage says that even the great sages have not agreed. So even these have little value, except that as which points to yourself. Be still. Be still means remain here. See what is. Seeing this, who could not be indifferent to knowledge and become still. So let's just quickly recap. Opposing forces, duties done and left undone. So he's talking about doership. You see, action and inaction, we are attached to these ideas. So he's saying, contemplate. When does this end? And for whom? Is there ever an end to doership? Consider this. Be ever desireless. Let go of all things. And to the world turn an indifferent eye. So he's shaking us out of our attachments. So what has he talked about? He's talked about the 2Ds. We talked about 3D ego, isn't it? So he's talked about the 2Ds out of this 3D ego, which is the doership and the desire. What do both of these rely on? It relies on the D of duality. There must be a sense of separation, of duality, of me to be a separate entity before I can desire something which seemingly is outside of me. See, there is a me who wants to make something mine. That is desire. And when that something seems to have become mine, that becomes an attachment. So this play of me and mine rests on this D of duality. Then, if I have a desire, if there is somewhere to get, something to get, then what to do? The do comes. The D of doership comes. So he's saying, when will this end? Things to do and things not to do. And for whom? This is the important question. Who is here which is doing or not doing? Considering this, be ever desireless, let go of all things, and to the world, turn an indifferent eye. Rare and blessed is one whose desire to live, to enjoy, and to know has been extinguished by observing the ways of men. So, when we have this idea that I am living my life and I have some control over it, I want these particular experiences, I want to be able to pick and choose the content of my experiences, which is what we talked about yesterday, pain avoidance, pleasure seeking type experiences. I only want pleasure, don't want pain. Those kind of beliefs, which gives this false idea of control over what is going to show up on this movie screen. Desire to live, to enjoy, and to know means we seem to be climbing a ladder of spiritual concepts to know more and more and more. And ultimately, I will have the best, most powerful concept, which is what I really want. The sage is saying it's not about that kind of knowledge also. Has been extinguished by observing the ways of men. You see? So who has been able to get only those experiences in life that they wanted? That is not the tale of humanity. So observing the ways of men means to look at humanity and to see that all of this actually is not getting anyone anywhere. So let go of all of this. So again, remember that the name of the chapter is detachment. So are you getting how? So we've done 9 chapters so far. How in a beautiful way all the clues, all the pointings are looked at, and then there's a invitation to drop it, and then again going back to one of the clues and deeply diving into it and seeing how the identity operates and how you can be free of it. So it's actually very practical. The Ashtavakra is famous or infamous actually for being too abstract and only for very seekers who have been very accomplished in some way. But actually when looked at from this lens, when you search for clues as to how do I discover the truth for myself, you will find that it is full of that. Verse number 6 in chapter 9. One who through worldly indifference, through serenity and reason, sees his true nature. One who through worldly indifference, through serenity and reason, sees his true nature and escapes illusion. Is he not a true teacher? One who through worldly indifference, through serenity and reason, sees his true nature and escapes illusion. Is he not a true teacher? In the myriad forms of the universe, see the primal element alone. In the myriad forms of the universe, see the primal element alone. You will be instantly free and abide in self. Very beautiful one. In the myriad forms of the universe, see the primal element alone. You will be instantly free and abide in self. Desire creates the world. Renounce it. Renounce desires, and you renounce the world. Now you may live as you are. Desire creates the world. This can be understood in 2 ways. The first way to understand this is that it is often said that there was a primal urge or a primal desire within the Absolute to taste itself as if it is existent, taste its own existence. This primal urge, it is said, that must have been present in the self for it to create this manifest phenomenal creation. So it could be pointing to that way where it's looking very at the primal aspect of creation, that the primal urge came within the heart of awareness of the self, which led to this world. So this is the first way. The second way to understand this is that this duality of me and the world, this idea of me and the world, relies on this, what I often call the Mahamantra of the ego, which is what's in it for me. This is the voice of desire. What's in it for me? So the sense of separation rests very much on this idea, what's in it for me. And once we are free from this idea, we are able to just let go of it. Then this idea of a separate world will cease to exist. All of it will be you. All of it will be an aspect of you. So this verse can also be looked at in both these ways, either of these ways. Desire creates the world, renounce it. Renounce desires and you renounce the world. And now you may live as you are. One misunderstanding that can come because of this verse is that you might want to renounce your job, your life, your house, your partner, your children. You see? So that is not what the pointing is about. All you have to do is renounce this voice of the mind. All you have to do is renounce just your next thought. It is enough to renounce. You see, many who have renounced all of those things have still not renounced this. Many have renounced all of those things in the world and still have not renounced the what's in it for me. Why to renounce it? Why to renounce this mantra of what's in it for me? Because it is not referring to the true you. It is referring only to this identity which has been the source of all your suffering. So just renouncing this is enough.